A bookstore by the sea. Setting: a quiet coastal town in Maine, where an unexpected friendship challenges long-held assumptions. Synopsis: in this heartfelt romance, two women from different worlds find themselves at odds, but are drawn closer in unexpected ways. Maggie Waters, a proud owner of a cozy bookstore in a sleepy Maine seaside town, values the quiet life she's built. Her store is a safe haven for anyone seeking solace in the pages of a book. But when her small town is disrupted by the arrival of a major development project, her peace is shattered. Enter Natalie Harlow, a reclusive writer who moonlights as a lesbian romance author under a pen name, and whose family's property business has just issued Maggie an eviction notice. Story: Natalie Harlow guided her niece Ellie down the main street of Lighthouse Cove. The small town was worlds away from her busy life in Boston, and the chilly sea air brushed against their faces. Ellie, a spirited 10-year-old with a wild mane of curly hair, tugged on her aunt's hand, pointing at a quaint building with a weathered wooden sign swaying in the breeze. "Look, Aunt Natalie, a bookstore. Can we go in, please?" Natalie hesitated. She knew the store, Tales by the Sea, all too well. Her family's development company had just sent them a lease termination letter. They planned to redevelop the block into upscale condos, which meant the cozy little bookstore's days were numbered. But looking into Ellie's eager eyes, she couldn't say no. "Just for a little while," she agreed. As they approached, a bell jingled softly, welcoming them inside. Warm light filled the space, casting a golden glow over shelves packed with well-loved books. Ellie darted toward a display of children's stories while Natalie lingered near the entrance, trying to ignore the wave of unease washing over her. The bookstore smelled of old paper and fresh coffee, a comforting scent that reminded her of simpler times. "Welcome to Tales by the Sea," called a voice from behind the counter. Natalie turned to see a woman with sandy brown hair tied back in a loose braid, a friendly smile lighting up her face. "Let me know if you need any recommendations," she added, her voice carrying a melodic warmth that filled the room. Natalie recognized her immediately. Maggie Waters, the bookstore owner. Ellie wasted no time introducing herself. "Hi, I'm Ellie, and I'm looking for a book about mermaids." Maggie chuckled softly, crouching down to Ellie's height. "Well, Ellie, you've come to the right place. We have plenty of stories where mermaids save the day. Do you like ones with a bit of magic in them?" Maggie asked, her eyes twinkling. As Ellie followed Maggie deeper into the store, Natalie felt herself drawn toward the romance section, a collection of vibrant book spines beckoning to her. She spotted a few familiar titles, Breeze books, the ones she herself had written under her pen name. Seeing her own work in this small, unassuming shop, knowing that it might soon be torn down, stirred an unexpected pang of guilt. "Do you like romances?" Maggie's voice suddenly cut through her thoughts, and Natalie turned to find the bookseller watching her with a curious smile. "We have some great ones by Bree. They're really popular here." Natalie swallowed, forcing a polite smile. "Yes, I'm familiar with her work," she said, hoping her face wouldn't betray her. She wanted to keep her author identity under wraps for as long as possible. Maggie seemed to pick up on the tension, but she shifted her focus back to Ellie, who was clutching a book with wide eyes. "This one has a mermaid who becomes friends with a girl from the town," Maggie explained, "and they go on adventures together." Ellie's excitement was infectious. "Can I get it, Aunt Natalie?" she pleaded. Natalie nodded. "Of course. And maybe we'll pick up something else too." She reached for a random book on the shelf, trying to avoid Maggie's gaze. The weight of the eviction notice she had indirectly delivered felt heavier than ever. But as Maggie rang up their purchase, the atmosphere remained warm. Maggie made small talk with Ellie, sharing tidbits about the local sea life and the best spots to find seashells. Despite the awkwardness between her and Maggie, Natalie found herself charmed by the way Maggie engaged with her niece. When the transaction was finished, Ellie bounded out of the store with her new book, eager to dive into her magical adventure. Natalie lingered by the door for a moment, gathering the courage to speak. "I'm sorry, about what's happening with the store. The eviction notice. It wasn't personal." Maggie's smile faltered, but she kept her composure. "I know it's just business," she said quietly, "but this place means a lot to me. It's been a part of the community for years." Natalie hesitated, guilt tugging at her. "If there's anything I can do to help." Maggie shook her head, but her expression softened a bit. "Thanks, but I think I'll manage. I just need some time to figure things out." She glanced out the window where Ellie was waving excitedly at them. "Your niece has a wonderful imagination. It's nice to see a young reader so enthusiastic." "She does, doesn't she?" Natalie replied, a small smile slipping through despite herself. She lingered a moment longer, caught between her conflicting roles as a businesswoman and an anonymous author who was starting to admire the woman standing before her. As she left the bookstore with Ellie, Natalie couldn't help but glance back through the window, catching a glimpse of Maggie tidying up the counter with a determined expression on her face. Something about this place, about her, felt different than she'd expected, and as she walked back into the crisp Maine air, she wondered if this unexpected encounter might change things in ways she hadn't anticipated. The next morning, Maggie stood behind the counter of Tales by the Sea, staring at the eviction notice pinned to the bulletin board above her desk. The paper seemed to mock her, a grim reminder that her cherished bookstore might not see another summer. She had been up half the night, thinking about the new condo project and how it would change their small town forever. It wasn't just about losing her business. It was about losing a place that had become a hub for the community, a place where stories and lives intersected. Her mind wandered to the woman from the day before, Natalie. Maggie had tried to keep her frustration in check while talking to her, but it was hard not to feel resentment towards someone whose family was turning her world upside down. Yet, there was something about Natalie's demeanor that lingered in Maggie's thoughts. Something more than just the eviction notice. Just then, the bell above the door chimed, pulling Maggie from her thoughts. A few regulars shuffled in, giving her a chance to distract herself with customer service, but by mid-afternoon, business had quieted again. She was restocking a shelf near the front window when a shadow fell over her. Maggie looked up to find Natalie standing outside, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. For a moment, Maggie considered pretending she hadn't seen her. But before she could decide, Natalie pushed the door open with a tentative smile. "Hi again," Natalie said, extending one of the coffee cups. "I thought you might like a little pick-me-up. It's from the cafe down the street. Hope you like hazelnut." Maggie hesitated, but then she took the cup with a polite nod. "Thanks. Didn't expect to see you again so soon." Natalie shifted on her feet, glancing around the nearly empty bookstore. "Yeah, I thought maybe I should explain a bit more about what's going on with the project. I know it's a lot to drop on you out of nowhere." Maggie folded her arms, leaning back against the counter. "Sure, why not? You've got my attention." She didn't intend for her tone to come off as cold as it did, but she couldn't quite help it. Her livelihood was at stake after all. Natalie cleared her throat, clearly feeling the tension. "Look, my family's company, they don't see things the way I do. For them, it's about numbers, maximizing profit and all that. But I know how much this place means to you, to the town. I didn't want the least termination to be such a shock." Maggie sipped the coffee, which was surprisingly good, and studied Natalie for a moment. There was a sincerity in her eyes that Maggie hadn't expected. "What I don't understand," Maggie began, "is why you're here telling me this. Are you trying to make me feel better about losing my store?" Natalie bit her lip, glancing at the worn shelves that lined the walls. I guess I'm here because, well, it's more complicated than that. And maybe I just wanted to see if there was a way we could work something out. Maggie raised an eyebrow. Work something out? Like what? You think you can convince your family to change their minds about bulldozing this block? Natalie's shoulders sagged slightly. I don't know. Maybe I can try. It's just they've got this whole plan drawn up already, and I'm not exactly the favorite child in the business. I don't have a lot of sway. She paused, looking directly at Maggie. But I thought I could at least try to understand your side of things. I wanted to hear what this place means to you. Maggie set her coffee down on the counter, considering her response. It wasn't often that she opened up to strangers, especially ones connected to the source of her problems. But there was something about the earnestness in Natalie's expression that made her relent, just a little. This store. It was my mom's before it was mine. She started it 30 years ago. Back when this town didn't have much else besides the lighthouse and a fishing dock. She wanted a place where people could escape, a place where they could find themselves in stories. After she passed away, I kept it going because it felt like keeping a piece of her alive. Natalie listened quietly, nodding as Maggie spoke. She seemed to understand that these were not just words, they were a lifeline. I get that, Natalie said softly after a pause. Sometimes a place holds more than just books or walls. It holds memories. I think that's why I started writing in the first place, trying to hold on to things that slip away. Maggie looked at her curiously. You're a writer? Natalie's cheeks flushed slightly, and she looked away, fumbling with her coat. Yeah, I write under a pen name. It's, a little embarrassing, actually. Maggie's interest was piqued. What's your pen name? Maybe I've read something you've written. Natalie hesitated, glancing around the store as if looking for an escape. But then she let out a small, resigned sigh. It's Bree. I write romance novels. Maggie's jaw dropped slightly, and she almost spilled her coffee. Wait, Bree? As in the same Bree that wrote Love in the Stacks? That book is one of our bestsellers here. I even recommended it to a few customers. Natalie winced slightly, but there was a hint of a smile in her eyes. Yeah, that's me. And it's weirdly ironic that my books are on your shelves while my day job is, doing the opposite of what my characters would do. Maggie couldn't help the small laugh that escaped her. It's a little funny, I'll admit. You're living a double life, huh? Natalie nodded, her expression softening. I've never been great at balancing the two, but meeting you, seeing this place, it makes me realize how important it is to try. I know I might not be able to change my family's decision, but I want to find a way to help. Maybe we could host an event here, something that draws people in, shows the community how special this place is. If we can rally enough support, maybe we could change their minds. Maggie studied Natalie's face, searching for any sign of insincerity, but she found none. Despite everything, it seemed that Natalie truly cared. And Maggie, despite her initial misgivings, found herself wanting to trust her. Okay, she said slowly. I'm willing to try. But don't think I'm going to make this easy for you. Natalie smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. I wouldn't expect anything less. As they stood in the bookstore, with the sound of waves crashing in the distance, it felt like the beginning of something neither of them had planned. A tentative partnership, maybe even a fragile friendship, had begun to form. And while the future of Tales by the Sea remained uncertain, Maggie couldn't help but feel a small spark of hope. Summary: with their unlikely alliance, Maggie and Natalie decide to host a literary event at Tales by the Sea, hoping to draw attention to the bookstore's charm and rally community support. As they spend more time together, Maggie's initial distrust softens, and Natalie's guarded nature begins to unravel. Amidst shared moments over coffee, conversations about favorite books, and a town caught in a tug-of-war between old and new, Maggie and Natalie must navigate their growing feelings and the challenges that come with them. As the event draws near, they realize that saving the bookstore might just be the first chapter in a story neither of them expected to write.